This hangout is live. All right,
All
folks.
right.
Here we go.
Here
Ladies
we
and
be.
gentlemen. Woo! Strange bedfellows. How'd you get here? Whoa! What?
Whoa, what is
Randy
that?
Maugans, CW Chanter.
Yo.
Power moves. It's crazy. Crossing the streams. Shout out
Oh,
to my
that
boy
is
Jerry
stream
Cthulhu.
crossing.
You know, Randy, you and I have, first of all, this is like, it's surprising to everybody, but what we should know is this. Real life people make real life networks.
Yeah.
And folks, the great thing about this thing is you can feel free to jump from the comment section to the YouTube content creator section to the internet radio Spreaker host section to the Facebook page hosting section anytime you want to. And shortly thereafter, you will meet everybody. We are a family. We are the weird, wonderful weirdos who ask questions about, what we were taught in school and, didn't play by the rules and know that there's something messed up. And we look around and we ask questions and we make friends and we make enemies and we're called human beings. You may have run into us every once in a while. So look, Randy, we have like many points of connection.
Yeah,
right?
we do, actually.
Many
Yeah.
points of connection. Shout out to Jerry Cthulhu, crossing the streams, right?
Jerry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jer Bear, what's up?
Major cross-pollinator dude.
Jerry, right? Who's like, is he a UFO contactee? No, he's just absolutely out here, interfacing, making connections, asking questions. We've got wonderful, beautiful people hanging out in the chat. It's a wonderful, beautiful. We know Shane in common, my boy Shane.
Yeah.
Shout out to Shane, the Ruiner. Oh, hi, I'm the Ruiner. I'm like the Ruiner. Like, it's such an imposing title. Shane, the Ruiner.
Shane, the fucking ruiner.
The fucking Ruiner. Don't open my blog unless you want
I was
your
actually terrified
challenged.
No, the first time I was like, I was going to talk to him. I'm like, I'm a little afraid here because this was like the ruiner. Is he like going to come to my house and wreck it, or is he turn into the Hulk, or what happens? Yeah. How do I work this?
That's what Shane's off. He's
like, he gets on the phone and he's like this really nice guy, and you're going, you just wrecked my entire. Is this like David Banner here?
No, absolutely. It's like what's behind the veil.
We're blowing the mystique on the whole thing.
No, absolutely. And when you finally meet Shane, he's like, "Hi, I'm Shane."
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, some people are going to believe my story, some people aren't, but
Yep.
I'm Shane. If you want to believe me, that's cool. If you don't, like, I hope you take whatever you want from my story and like move on with your life journey. Shane, the Ruiner, the Ruiner. Well, you hang out with Sethicus, Boaz. That guy's like all sorts of.
Sethicus.
Oh yeah.
Now there's some dark shit going on there. How about it? This guy. Fine. I met Sethicus down in Philadelphia. And he walks up to him. He's got his hood up and he's got his beard pointed. And he's got the tats. And I'm going, this guy's a thrasher. And he's like, oh man, I just love you. And he puts his arms around me and we embrace. And it's like,
don't ruin the mystique, man. Don't ruin the mystique, man.
Mystique.
Like, I'm like, the minute I saw that, I was like, damn, I should have done that. Shoot yourself in black and white. Be like, oh, like Elvira about shit. Be like,
it is kind of awesome, isn't it? It's like
I kid because I love. You know what I mean? I kid because I love.
We should go back to black and white.
Why not? The funny thing about black and white is I talk to my dad about this all the time, and he tells me, he goes, it's tripped out, but everybody who remembers those shows, it was in black and white, but they all saw color. They all saw color. They all knew that Lucille Ball was a redhead. You know what I mean?
See, we grew up in that era. Like, we didn't have color TVs until I was 10 or 11 years old. I mean, I saw there was a color. And when I finally saw that there was a part in color, I felt kind of screwed because I didn't know that before. It was interesting. So there was like this whole, you saw color because you filled it all in.
We fill in the blanks. and like Lord knows only where that's going to lead us to, how all this stuff is working. But I don't know. It's weird because everybody does remember those things in color, and I to circle back, what I mean, like I kid around and I joke, and people talk, people might have like impressions about me, and they might think that it's strange that you're appearing on my channel. But like when we were opening up talking about Shane or even talking about Seth, who I've never met, but I subscribe to his channel and whatever. You know what I mean? I kid because I love, there's no hatred. I'm not anti anybody. You know what I mean? There's no enemies as far as I'm concerned. Everybody should just talk and communicate with each other. And we can kid, and we can also have, maybe every once in a while have a criticisms. There's things that we have, in common. And there's things that we don't have in common. You're never really friends until you fight. You're never really in a human relationship with people until there's not only, oh yeah, I agree with you on this and I agree with you this, and those guys are jerks and those guys are jerks. There's got to be inner conflict where you work individual stuff out and you really come together. And I only say that because if you and I are talking and all this stuff in the brouhaha and our individual in little tide pool that we live in with all these other wonderful strangers that we were talking about before. There's been a lot of talk about conflict and fighting and disagreement and, agendas. And, remember growing up, your family, people fight, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no such thing as just like everybody in coexistence and peace, like 24 hours a day, maybe on the 99th or 11th dimension, but like here on planet Earth, you struggle and you fight with your brothers and sisters sometimes,
Brutal. It's brutal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's, especially the realer it gets,
I remember, and I've told this story. It was like people would say, so what was like Christmas Eve like at your house? And I'm like, we went to my Uncle Mike's and we drank red Paisano wine and beer and shots. And my uncles went out in the front yard and beat the shit out of each other. That was Christmas Eve. Because they were Irish. They were crazy. They were,
right.
You throw in a couple of Polacks and you get the guys from the steel yard and the railroad coming in and things get crazy. Democrats and Republicans, they took that shit seriously. And somebody was going to get punched out because they'd say something. Somebody get called a honky, somebody get called a whatever. And that was Christmas Eve. There you go. Peace in Jesus' name, baby.
That's it. Hey, but this is and that's that's a slice of reality pie. Believe you me, it's only we look at the movie screen, we look at the TV picture of the perfect image of what it should be like, but the reality is the reality. But the reality is so good because that scenario that you just painted was the scenario that existed for many people, for a lot of people, for human beings on planet Earth, stretching on until when we arrived from wherever we arrived at. You know what I mean? I mean, that's life.
It's not Norman Rockwell's America, man. I mean,
no. Norman Rockwell's
I don't know what you remember. Norman Rockwell's America, Life magazine, and they'd be sitting there with the nice plump golden turkey and the cranberry sauce, and Grandma was this jolly woman with rosy cheeks smiling. It wasn't really like that. That was all advertising. That's sure. Madison Avenue.
Sure, and
everybody was white too, by the way. Let's not forget that.
What was that?
We got a little bit of latency on the stream.
We do. Unfortunately, and when I set this up, I should have reminded myself that I've been having some trouble with my internet in my basement, but hopefully we hang out and we're doing okay. A little bit latency. I don't know how. Am I chopping up terribly for you? Or are we doing okay?
No, you're totally. There you go. You froze up for a minute. It's okay. It's all good.
That happens.
I'll just slow down.
And you know what? Well, then, it gives us a great opportunity to have a potlatch with our fellow conspiratard weirdos by saying, if we're having latency, I guess we're scaring some people. The NSA, CIA, they don't want us talking, right? But that's okay because with our positive energy, we're just going to white light the shit out of this thing. And you can try and hit us with your broadcast beams and your scalar technology internet interface.
Yeah, I'm just
We're
waiting
just
for
gonna
the
keep on.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the helicopter to come over. That normally happens here.
You know, can I tell you something? Half the time that I participate in this thing, I'm hoping that please somebody kidnap me just to let me know that, you know what I mean, that there's something out there, you know what I mean? The grays and the aliens, I'm always like, yeah, you know, and I totally don't believe in gray aliens. They don't exist. I hang out with people who hang out with gray aliens, like, yo, so
it's
anytime
one of those
now.
moments when you go, now would be the perfect time for an abduction. They walk in, they duct tape you, they put you on their little heads.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
like the perfect guy to kidnap, right? Or how about
they do the full body thing where they just kind of beam you up, and then you're like in the midair and in rapid eye movement, just going, dude, and they go, take me to your leader, and you wind up being
absolutely.
sucked into the tube, but that never
I just
happens.
hope I get like the nice guys, the ones who like communicate with me and like want to know me, like they're here to help me concentrate on my heart center. And I've got like 888,000 children with them, and they all look slightly like me, but a little bit like weirdo, and they're all aliens, and I'm like, I just hope I don't get abducted by the other guys. You know what I mean? We're like, I'm like, yo, you got interdimensional space travel, but you don't got lube, brothers.
Right? Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You know
yeah.
Come on, come on, what's up? Really?
No jam jelly for you, dude.
Right, seriously, like if you want my DNA sample, that's cool. You just like come up to me slowly, like, hey, check it out. You always wanted to be an alien. Here I am. By the way, while I'm here, some of your DNA, and I'd be like, straight up, fine, whatever, right? You know,
It does,
take
yeah, a
what you
simple
need.
tongue swab will work.
Blood sample. I'm telling
the probing thing.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Just like hang out outside like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Hey, you like the movie? You know what I mean? Come hang. And people will be like, fine, whatever. But I don't know. Horses, I guess, you know, it depends on who, I guess your lottery ticket comes up, you know, and your contact experience. It's either going to be a good one or a bad one. And then you ask yourself this question: how much of it is just there's some sort of experience that happens with an interdimensional entity? And some people, like, you know, we drop acid, right? Some people, the doors of perception open, they get that freedom, and they have a negative experience, you know, for whatever reason, not because they're wrong or bad, just for whatever reason, how those things happen, they don't process it correctly. They have a bad experience. And some people, you know, fly. So I wonder if, you know, and then people ask all sorts of questions about these experiences that people are having. This is the world we live in, right? This is the world that you and I live in. That people don't only just talk about, oh, yeah, you know, Trump versus Clinton. There are people out here being like, yeah, you know, so I go a lot of these contactee conferences, and even the people that are having positive experiences are having positive experiences, but maybe for the wrong reasons. You know, a reptilian can look like a palladium, you know, if they want to. That's all I'm saying about it. You know what I mean? What is this world we live in, right?
Yeah, it's a world we live in. And you know, I engage a fair amount of that. I'm pretty.
I have to.
I'm pretty. Well, you know, there's things I know, there's things I suspect, and there's things I'm curious about. I'm curious about what people's concepts are about extraordinary things. So how do I find a chat room here? Is that like on the YouTube page?
So if you go to the YouTube, number one, when you go to the YouTube page, just make sure that the page is muted, or else you'll get feedback because you'll hear our audio on delay.
Oh yeah, right. That's horrible because then you get echo.
But then next to the screen, you should see live chat, and you can actually, if you see at the top where it says live chat, and then there'll be 3 little dots. If you go on that, there's actually an option to pop it out.
Screw with bandwidth too.
We don't want to screw with bandwidth. Gerald Paris. Gerald, long time no see. Love to Gerald. Shout outs to my boy. Hope everything's going good. Reams the Omaha Ben. We're figuring out some technical. Are they back? How we doing, Randy?
Okay, well, I'm not seeing that. I'm also gonna completely screw the pooch here with bandwidth if I try. So
don't bother. Don't
I'll
worry.
let you take care of the chat.
We'll do it. Yeah, at the end of the day, basically what's going to happen is I was giving some shout outs as we were figuring out the technical situation. But what we'll do is you and me will talk, and then maybe at the end we'll take a look at the chat, and if people have specific questions to me or you, or about the conversation in general, then we'll kick it to that. But people are saying hi. I can tell you that we have 36 viewers, people watching already, which is beautiful.
Nice.
It's beautiful.
Nice.
I think that's wonderful. And yeah, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. And so
that's a big enough party to roll out a keg in my world. So
listen, you know what? See, that's the other thing. We all come out here. I mean, if you make it, you're trying to communicate. You're trying to talk. If you're trying to talk and communicate, generally, there's a feeling that you want to get your voice out there, and it involves all sorts of questions and compromises along the way. You know what I mean? Is it okay to take this speaking engagement over here, or should I appear on this channel over here, even though I might not agree with all their you do things, but you get on this adventure of trying to spread your voice out there. And I really don't know where I was going with that, other than we were talking.
You and I talked about this the first time maybe about a month ago, discussing various and sundry tawdry things upon the internet.
Right.
And, you were very politic about it. You were very polite. And like, there's some things we don't agree about. And I was shocked. I was shocked. I was like, no.
This is you know what it's like to be me? No. You know what it's like to be me? Every time I get contacted by someone who I respect in this community, they always say, CW, I just learned about your channel. I think you're doing good work out here. Good stuff on this piece, this piece, this piece. I can't wait to see what you do next. We should talk sometime. And we start talking. In the meantime, I'm thinking, now, what's going to happen when they find out that before episode 37, 42, and 97 that they saw on episode 13 through 17, I was like, Cara St. Louis. You know what I mean? That's Randy Maugans. This doucher. Fucking yeah. Hi, I'm Randy Maugans, and I know Shane the Ruiner. Bah. You know what I mean? Man, you want to talk? Awesome. Shit. Oh, fuck. So, and then you're like, but it's one of those things, you know what I mean? When I said Cara St. Louis, that wasn't a joke, and I invoke her name specifically because we know her in common too. There's all sorts.
Yeah, we do.
Connect. Yeah,
I mean, well, if you look at it like it's just a wheel, and they come together and they do this gear thing where they mesh for a while, they touch, and then they're completely oppositional at another point where they're not engaged at all. And so the wheels are in spin. And in that time, and almost none of the people that we've mentioned in commons at some point have I probably not had a good piss out with them.
Absolutely.
Even if it's just a hissy fit. Even with Shane, who is as mellow, as cool as possible. And it's kind of like, Shane, what the fuck are you doing?
After a while.
Or Cara, calm down,
Yeah, she got pissed off at me over nothing. I was like, what? Before I knew it, I was like, oh, shit, really?
Yeah.
But that's...
So we kind of, but that's... How is that not like the real world anyway? I mean,
that is listen, the conclusion of my last talk with Shane was basically, if this experience is happening here, discussing alien contact and the Illuminati and the Cabal, or whether it's happening at like the water cooler at the local, paper supply company, It's the exact same experience. These are people having human experiences. A lot of it. Is there bigger stuff going on in the world? Sure there is. But for the most part, the majority of the frisson and energy that we see is just people in the real world making real world moves that we all have to make. You know what I mean? That we all have to make. You know, you don't want to be compromised at the same time. You know, the rent's got to be paid. You know what I mean? Until the perfect world of the anarchist libertarian revolution happens and everyone's getting everything for gratis, right? Until that time comes around, like you got to keep your electric bill on, you got to pay for your internet,
Yep.
you got people have to do what they have to do, right? So there's going to be compromises along the way. You're going to have to do something, right? At some point, right? At some point, everybody's got to hoe out to something to get that energy to keep the thing going. It is what it is.
I mean, you can imagine that I have a fair amount of interactions with people, and there are different points along the grid. And I get people who ask me these like really wild questions, like deep state questions and questions about spiritual transcendence, and are these people human? Are they Draco reptilians? And it'll get so into minutia. And I had somebody that, one night he's asking me, just pelting me with questions. I'm like, dude, you got to slow down a little bit. For your sake, you need to slow down. I'm like, look, I can spin on this shit all night, but remember something. I'm a guy that sometimes forgets to change the oil in my car. I mean, seriously, you cannot be that abstract that you forget that there's actually shit that has to be done in the real world. So, because the people will go off this awakening process, whatever you want to call it. There's a point where there's a fixation on it. It's an addiction. Mm-hmm. They've hit a brain center that's spinning off like massive amounts of adrenaline and lots of other chemicals, and they're like high on this. Absolutely. And I get that. I think anybody that goes through the awakening experience goes through that period where they're really like Digger Dog. They're like they want to go to the center of the earth to figure this shit out. It's like there's no rabbit hole they will not go down. And it's like the more shock value it has. And I know this. I did this. The more shock value there is, the more you think nothing can top the last thing you saw. You go looking for that next hit.
Absolutely.
And this will emotionally devastate some people. I've seen it. I've seen where people just like, I don't give a fuck about anything anymore. What the hell should I care about now? We're screwed. We're being chemtrailed. We're being harped. All our food's poison. The water's screwed. My kids are deformed. My genetics are messed up. My sperm's blank. What do I got left to live for? And I'm like, wait a minute. That wasn't the point of the conversation. It wasn't to amass all this gloom and doom. It was just to get you to a place where you faced a reality in a way that left you cope with it psychologically, and you're so not coping with it psychologically right now. In a way, you almost become like a therapist.
Right. Well, absolutely. And at the end of the day, no matter what the scenario you finally figure out at the end, first of all, when you were talking about going down the wormhole, the rabbit hole, the fact of the matter is that there's like an infinite number of players and an infinite number of points. You can make infinite number of connections all over the place. It's like a connect the dots, painting where there's like a billion dots. Yeah. You want to paint a smiley face. You want to connect the dots and make a frowny face. It's like however you process it. And it's true, like no matter what the scenario is, well, first of all, there's a couple of things going on, to deconstruct the scenario. There's number one, what's really going on? Because there's anticipated experiences, there's actual connections, there's positive situations, and there's the reality. Like I always tell people, like, don't worry about Draco reptilian hybrids, the smart meters, when you can't figure out how to make your own bed in the morning or get up and out of get a job or whatever. You know what I mean? Like concentrate on coming back to fundamentals of what's really happening. What can you really know that's going on in your world? you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense. Because people do get they're if you go to their apartment, their house, their room, their couch that they're currently surfing on, their actual tethered physical reality is abysmal. There's drift, literally and figuratively, right? But where are they spending all their energy? What are they doing all day? They might be straight, narrow, and sober, but they're not concentrating on the real reality around them. They're on forums 24 hours a day, or YouTube, or now, analyzing, they can't figure out how to make their bed in the morning, but they're trying to figure out making a compilation video of clips to explain Manchester. You know what I mean? Why that's a false flag. You know what I mean? And why that's connected to the Illuminati cabal and Mark Dice and don't you understand pedogate and Podesta emails and then Trump, but Trump's cool, you know what I mean? And Kekistan, you know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? But the reality is his mom's still, washing their socks.
Yeah. Well, and then we've got people.
Is some of this stuff that people are fixated on in this, being red pilled, awakening experience. How much of it is just like fucking might be total fucking people blithering on about bullshit, right? People just wasting their time. There's
a fantasy level to a lot of this stuff. And I mean, you do have to parse this. I talk about some pretty incredible shit at times on my shows. I post things on Facebook that will challenge your sense of reality. By the same token, a lot of it really is practical. At the end of the day, it's good to go out and mow the grass. It's good to go do the garden or walk your dog or take your kids out and play ball or do something that's actually human.
Right.
Assuming you have a family. We have people that, like you said, they live on chats. They live in these virtual worlds. We have people who are spinning off all kinds of things about solar warden programs and hauling meteorites out of the middle of space and stuff. And you find out they're living in their mother's basement and they're 42 years old and they've never had a job and they're on disability.
Hey, shut up. Wait, I told you that in confidence. What? Whoa.
Not personal. Not personal.
Close to home. Whoa.
Ooh. Did we have fun?
What? I got a Canadian girlfriend. She's cool, but she doesn't know on the internet. She's a Quaker. And she's Amish, and she doesn't like webcams.
Hey, the Amish do use webcams, though.
That break my heart. Don't tell me that, man. Really?
How do they adapters.
That?
They know that I live near Amish.
Yeah.
In the 90s, I was driving in and out of Amish country all week. They had sheds in the middle of a field where they kept mobile phones that you would go out there and you would use the mobile phone in the middle of the field. They had fax machines in the barn. Seriously. These were early adapters. These people, they found a way to work this that somehow, regardless of the suspension of the fact that they're not supposed to use cameras, they worked it all out.
But that's what people do, and that's why I have my own. I love religion, and I'm a fan of religion. I have my own religion, but like part of it is,
you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're sort of a cult leader.
Hey, listen. That's what we're talking. What people do to get around rules. People function. So, do you know about the concept of a like a Shabbat elevator? So
never
like,
heard that
no, absolutely. Well, like on during Shabbos, Jews aren't allowed to use electricity.
Right.
You're not supposed to flip on a light or anything like this. So they have things like, telephones and elevators. And so that you can't press a button to make anything function like that. But what if you need to visit someone in the hospital on a Friday? So they have things that are like, basically like, I'm Jewish culturally, so I had a bar mitzvah and everything. So I don't want people to think I'm being like a racist here, but it's people are funny. So they have special phones that you can use during Shabbos, where basically instead of dialing the phone, you know, if you press a button like to dial a keypad, that would be wrong, because it's just like flipping the light switch. So what they do is it's a little metal stick, and instead of buttons, there's little holes, and when you press the stick into the hole, basically it's like the phone goes through a random generator, and it just waits till it hits that number randomly that you've queued in. So you haven't pressed the button or flicked the switch. Technically, the machine did it. It's crazy. And the elevators, they stop on every floor, so you don't have to worry about pressing a button. It'll get to your floor eventually. You wait for the door to open. You didn't make the door open. The door opened on its own. You walk in. That's okay. We can walk on Shabbos, and the elevator just goes. And then when it opens on the floor that you need to go to, you get off. And then you didn't press a button. You didn't flick a switch, so no worries. It's okay. The rabbi said. You know, there's a Penn and Teller episode. Penn and Teller the Magicians did a fantastic TV series. You can find it all over YouTube, called Penn and Teller's Bullshit. And they did an episode on, you know, religious laws and these sort of things, and how people, you know, get around them and function around them. And that's part of what inspired me to do my own religion, is as being a student of religions and trying to join several unsuccessfully. I realized, you know, studying the history of them, that this is just what people do. They invent these weird rules, and it's this game that we play that gives some sort of structure to something that makes us feel better about being alive in a world where, you know, you live, and sometimes good things happen, and that's beautiful, but a lot of times bad things happen, and you got to deal with it. You got to find some way to deal with it, and then you die. You know what I mean? And so how do you deal with that? And so people come up with all these beliefs and these things. And I think that's why I said I'll make my own too, because everyone else does. That's what everybody else did. You know what I mean? I don't for a minute think that any angel spoke to Joseph Smith, or, you know, God went to Muhammad or Moses. I think
it was the magic glasses, man.
Said people need some sort of structure. They need some sort of rules. Fine. Here we go.
We said that.
Killing's a bad thing. You know, don't do that.
But well, you can do it, but it has to be the right enemy.
Well,
the sanctified enemy is the big part of this.
So I know that you started off in Christian broadcasting back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Do you still consider yourself a Christian?
No.
Okay. So the New and the Old Testament.
That said, I find the words of the person that they call Jesus Christ in the Bible to be marvelously clarifying. His name wasn't really Jesus, and everything built around it is bullshit. But there's a kernel there that I hang on to. But do I practice as a Christian? No, I was actually an ordained minister. I functioned as an itinerant minister.
Oh, wow.
So, and I did that until 2010, when I went and looked at this book, and I went, it's full of murder and rape, and this guy's sending people out to slaughter people, and it's like looting and pillage, and they're sacrificing animals. And my God, at one point, they're putting their kids on brazen altars and burning them. And we're worried about Satanism? Really?
Hey, you know what I mean? So now let's ask ourselves this question. So we obviously both know the material, the source material. Yeah. So right after Moses gives the Jewish people one, or thou shalt not murder. Well, people want to parse it out, right? The very next thing, I tell people this all the time. I go, it's so brazen and blazing in the Bible. I think that there's a possibility that are we being taught something about the nature of the cruelty of life in this one moment, where right after Moses literally brings the 10 commandments down. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not rape, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Literally, I tell people this all the time, and they act like I'm like bullshitting. Literally, the next thing he does is, okay, now that I've given these 10 commandments, you see over there? Okay, here's what I want you to do. Number one, kill all the dudes. Fuck those guys, right? Kill those motherfuckers. They gotta die. I'm your God. You're the chosen people. Fuck those motherfuckers.
That's
Kill them.
Yeah.
And then, you know, all the broads that they've been with, you know, the used ones, you know, the ones with some life in them, kill those. Kill them, right? And all the girls who, you know, have never known a man, ooh, You know, the young ones,
Primo.
those ones, those are for you. Because I'm thy Lord, Yahweh. And this is the kind of shit that I brought in the first
Yeah.
and second act, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm the good guy. And I'm the good guy, right? And then so that's the thing. But so here's the thing, thou shalt not kill. Are we not, is it not right there, day one to day two? Could it be that you say there is a God? Say you really are Yahweh, right? But it's like Joseph Smith. We do this, do that, and you'll become a god. What if you became a god? How would you do it better? Who would judge Yahweh? Like, what if we had to create a world? Couldn't you see yourself being like, okay, how to break it to these guys that sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and if you want to eat, the little sheep has to die. What kind of parable do you cook up to explain that life sucks? You know what I mean? Sorry, maybe God messed it up and has just spent his entire time since then trying to get it right. And the reason the Bible is oh, we can it's mockable, and the message of Jesus is just a little bit better. You know what I mean? And maybe the book more, you know what I mean? Maybe it's just and now maybe God is literally talking to people okay, day 9,999.99. Okay, send a new prophet to say what? What would you do? I mean, maybe it's just you can't do anything, but we can all agree. Let me see. I'm sorry. I apologize. My wife is going to bed. Okay, hold on one second. Bear with me. I let my brother mess with my phone.
Texting back
No, no,
here.
no,
This is
listen.
what loving people in America do. They text each other from the
Oh
other room
no.
now.
Listen, hey, to be honest, to be fair, well, I am broadcasting, this it's the show, you know what I mean? So she's respectful to that. But I will tell you this is that it does provide us with a good democratic moment. Because if I talk to anybody, Sundry and Jan, Phil B, whoever, on these things, and normally when my wife says that she needs to go to bed, I go to tuck her in. So you can talk to nobody for a minute. Can you see live chat, or can you not see live chat?
I cannot.
You cannot. So they're saying only wonderful things. Feel free to shout out, say whatever you
That's
want to
good.
the CW Chanter audience for about 2 seconds, because
So
I'm going to be
Chandler's
letting my
going to
wife
go
in.
talk the wife in.
That's
And
right.
Randy's left here with
Here we go.
FaceTime with an audience I can't see and can't interact with. So, but it's cool. Look, this is awesome. I'm trying to pull up chat here, but I'm not getting. I have no idea what my browser shows. These are these moments. This is why I don't do live, because live is just riddled with all these moments where you just go, crap, that's not working. So Chandler's up tucking his wife into bed. That's actually very cool that he's that spontaneous to be able to. I'd answer questions. There probably aren't any, except how in the hell did I wind up doing a show with CW Channer? The answer is that Channer and I had this great conversation, but at the end of the conversation, Channer's like, there's a couple things we don't agree about. And I think this is crap and that's crap, and I'm not sure I believe this. And, you put this on your show. And I'm like, yeah, I do that. And I'm like, hey, Chandler, who called?
What happened? Okay. Well, I can see that something inadvertent happened. Apparently, Randy got dropped from the call. Yikes. Well, that is unfortunate. Well, let's see what happened. Lord only knows how long he was on, or if he even knows that he dropped. Oh, sweet Jesus. Let's find out what's going on here. Oh, he's back. Okay, fantastic. Oh my God, what happened? Oh, let's see what's happening. Okay. So we got Randy back. I don't know if we can hear you. I see your icon, so hopefully these will come back online. And if they don't come back online, that'll be really unfortunate, and we will have no one to blame but the cabal. The cabal. Suze Pratt. Can't hear him. That's right. Randy, can you hear me? Here we go. Oh. Randy, can you hear me? And he's gone again. He's back again. Randy, is there anybody out there? Randy. The Illuminati shot the connection down. Randy, can you hear me? Well, we got Randy. I don't have him muted. Wow. Well, in the meantime, well, I mean, so here's, I guess to paraphrase or to recap events, much of which I did not see. I left to go tuck my wife into bed, leaving Randy to talk to you guys, a chat that he could not see. But I was confident because we live and we die, more or less. If we're broadcasting, talking, you put your words and messages out there. And she's muted. So let's see if we can unmute him. You're muted.
I don't know how I got muted. I don't know how I wound up going off camera either.
Oh wow! Okay, I'm just glad you're back, bro. Woo!
How long was I gone? Is this still the 21st century?
Man, hold on a second.
Who's president now?
Oh, that's the questions we asked. Now, here's what happened. So then I clicked on my thing.
Isn't that the question that they always ask you in the hospital?
Who's the president? You know what year it is?
Now? You're going, it was Jimmy Carter, I think. It's 1978, right?
Now, but now here's the thing. Now I got to figure out because I've highlighted myself, but I don't want to be highlighted. So let's see. How do I do this? How do I unhighlight myself? Oh, there you go. Perfect. Okay. Talk. See if you pop on the screen.
Why am I not getting a camera?
There you go. Perfect.
What?
No, I'm just saying that you showed up.
I did something right.
Just one person on the screen.
Yeah, I know. That's it's the bad viewer experience. So what happened here?
What are you gonna do? But
why am I still avatar? Why do I have an avatar? That's a horrible picture too.
Turn your camera on. We went through this before.
Ah, okay. There we go.
There you go.
I don't know. This
got them. Good times. Hey, listen, you know what I mean? Because listen. Well, listen. Hey, technical difficulties happen. We weathered the storm. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, so we
Watch
should
this.
not. And we can all say this. There we go. And if we want to blame anybody, blame the cabal. Right? It was the fucking cabal. They were on us from the Jump Street. Break it down. The Chanting, you think you're going to make inroads? Hit him with the Skype denial. No.
There you go. Yeah,
Laura Eisenhower, where did you go? Laura?
Oh, no.
Laura.
It's not Morris, Laura.
That's it. We made it through the rain. There you go. Back where we were starting from. I don't know what the hell we were talking about. We'll figure it out along the way, but that's the point, right?
So this is Google Hangouts. So I mean,
we're figuring that along the way. What I love is that why are the people that they'll tell me things like, oh, I can't use Gmail because Gmail is totally hackable and you got to use this thing called Hushmail, or you got to use this thing called Protomol Torbit 7.573 rerouter, and then they can't get you. And I'm like, it's all ones and zeros, and you interacting with people online, and they're all naked and exposed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just whatever. What are you talking about? Everyone thinks that they're being sold a product that's going to say you're safe online, or your secrets are safe with us, or this is the best way to do it, or this is totally not a scam. Everything's a scam. Bitcoin, Ethereum.
It's 128-bit RSA encrypted. Yeah. But guess who did RSA encryption? It was the Navy. And guess who has all the keys to the back door on 128-bit encryption? The NSA.
Or how about this? Bitcoin. NSA. Don't worry about the fact
Bitcoin.
that the inventor is anonymous. Don't worry about the fact that we don't know. No one knows who the fucking inventor of this shit was. Don't worry about it. These ones and zeros are worth $3,000. These ones and zeros are worth $4,000. Randy, these ones and zeros are worth $5,000. You got to buy my ones and zeros. Buy them all. Cryptocurrency. Meanwhile, in the world of tomorrow.
So let me get this straight now. These are coins that were minted based on the concept of running clock cycles on a computer over a blockchain network, which costs money to run electricity through computers, through the special computer that you need to mine for Bitcoin. And so you've expended energy to create something intangible called a Bitcoin that's now what's worth what? $1,300 or something? Really? Based on what value is a Bitcoin?
Well, yeah,
please, somebody help me here. I'm struggling.
The whole thing. We hate fiat currency. Currency that's got this imaginary value attached to it by a governmental organization. You know what I mean? Whereas these ones and zeros, right? Like, they've got an intrinsic value because according to the program, there can only be 20 million of them. And it's like, meanwhile, in the world of tomorrow, when like the shit really hits the fan, first of all, number one, like, I don't care, what you say, like, money is like as good as the government behind it. Honestly, like, if you come up to some stranger in the street and be like, I'll give you this Bitcoin for like water. And they'll be like, well, what am I going to do with Bitcoin? There's no more electricity. The shit has hit the fan.
Yeah.
Even physical gold. People are like, ha, 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 you idiots. I told you the doomsday was coming, and now that it's here, I'm here with my potable water and my physical gold. You fools. I'm the richest man in the world. Here come these raiders. Ha, ha, ha. Wait till I hit them with the exchange rate for my gold. Wait, they're killing me.
I'm the new central banker.
And there goes my gold.
Yeah. Now I know because some people popped their head up, so we hit a nerve here.
Oh, absolutely.
And I understand this, I mean, even Cliff High is like, I listened to Cliff High's explanation and I'm like, so basically this is just the newest casino, because if we look at what the dollar is and we look at the stock market and all the speculation and Goldman Sachs, and how the dollar is now worth 2 cents compared to what it was worth back in 1914. And you're kind of going, this is a big casino, isn't it? Really? And we don't really issue the chips here. This is just like, we sit at the table and we lose money hand over fist, and we pay you for the privilege, right? So now you're going to introduce digital currency, which I feel better about that because my computer's never been hacked. I mean, do you feel better about that? Do I feel better about the fact that this is a concept I can't even wrap my head? I mean, gold and silver, you can melt it down, you can make shit with it. What are you going to do with a friggin' Bitcoin?
Well, but even the gold and silver, like, you know what I mean? Like the part of, like, I think people like the value of it. Like, this is like going back into human history. You know, there's a time before things that, like, even as entertaining as, like, you know, rock, paper, scissors, or log drums came to be, that people were probably like looking at gold and like that was like the shiniest thing on the block. Like, I guess that's why it got value. And you can do things like build electronics, I guess, today. But for the most part, when people talk about this currency, they talk gold. What are you gonna do with gold? You know what I mean? You can build a hammer out of gold. You can build a plowshare out of gold.
Well, remember,
you know, what's the value of gold?
What were they doing? What were they doing out in the desert? I mean, they made a golden calf, didn't they? They took all this gold out of Egypt, hauled it out into the desert, and they went, he's up on the mountain getting the goddamn commandments. What are we going to do? Let's make a bull.
Why not? Hey, listen, you got to do something. You know what I mean?
Make it out of gold.
Hey, listen, it's the shiniest thing that we got. You know what I mean?
Kind of begs the question, where the hell did they get a
cow? You might as well make it out of gold. Right?
You might as well. But where do you get a foundry in the middle of the desert?
Well,
and for that matter, what are you going to do? And this is true. I mean, gold and silver have a certain value in terms of commercial aspect, being able to use it for something. But with Bitcoin, I mean, I've watched Bitcoin and I've gone, I just don't get it. Nobody can explain this to me. I'm going to put this machine on my computer and it's going to sit here and it's spinning clock cycles and it's spinning them out into a blockchain. And at some mystical point in the near future, we're going to hit the magic number and there will be no more Bitcoins ever again, sealed. It will become infinitely valuable.
Right.
But what they're really going to do is they're going to micro-denominate the shit out of this so that you could have 1/10 billionth of a Bitcoin to go out and buy groceries with. Because it's also infinitely expandable. It's also infinitely contractible. Somebody's going to make a shitload of money on this, and it's not going to be you.
Right. Well, the other thing is, like, what is money? Isn't this like, aren't we all just playing this like like we talk about the Babylonian banking system? And then you invent Bitcoin. I'm like, it's just a different, like, you just fractalize the Babylon banking system. You haven't solved the problem of, you know, freezing real world interactions or playing this game with these imaginary denominations of value. These 3 coins are worth 5 hours of your time. You know, minimum wages, you were getting screwed when they were giving you 5 imaginary pieces of paper for your work hour. Now they're giving you 15. Now you're being treated fairly. You have 15 pieces of paper that you can go down and then they exchange for something else. And Bitcoin is just the same old game. And I don't see, first of all, I don't see 200 years in the future people being like, it's a Bitcoin and it's now worth $5 billion because someone wrote a program that would end up with exactly 20 million results. And this is one of those 20 million results of that one program that one guy wrote back in 2000 whatever.
And but it's always been a program.
Yeah.
Really?
And now in 555,000, 5 billion and 3, we know that this one is one of the original ones. And it's got so much value. No, people, it's ones and zeros. It's got no fucking value whatsoever. It's imaginary fucking money. We can store it on this electronic wallet. That's because it's not fucking real.
These are the same people that
real.
read about.
I feel like It's insane. It's insane.
No, these are the same people that are worried about the Russian EMP that's going to take out the entire Northeastern corridor or the entire United States. That's a separate conversation. But what are you going to do with your crypto wallet on the day when the cell towers go down? You're kind of screwed, aren't you?
Ones and zeros. It's not real. You can't exchange it for jack shit, nothing.
And by the way, you Christians out there should be really paranoid, because this looks awfully close to the mark of the beast to me. I mean, none shall buy and sell except they have the name and the number of the beast. Really?
Alex Jones said it was legit, so I guess we're cool.
Oh, that's fine then. I'm good.
But isn't that we were talking before about the games that people play with their faith and their rules and their religion? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you know what I mean? I'm a Christian. And I'm voting for Donald Trump. I think as a Christian, the most responsible, ethical vote for me is to vote for the wealthy, pampered son of a multi-billionaire who thinks it's acceptable as a married man to grab women by the pussy merely because they will let him. That washes him clean. That's completely cool. And so I'm here on Newsmax, whatever, all these Christian shows.
Blood of the Lamb, baby.
But it's cool, and we have it totally on good authority that he's saved by the Lamb. So he mentioned the Bible once during his speech. So we're all copacetic and cool with this, and we're gonna vote for Trump because fuck that bitch. She's got Alzheimer's. I heard she raped babies and is a lesbian with Roseanne Barr's girlfriend, Kathy O'Brien. I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble. You know, I'm just cracking jokes.
This is all just
it is what it is.
All for entertainment purposes, actually.
Absolutely.
All comments made on the show tonight are strictly for entertainment purposes only.
Well, I'm the Eros. It's this, is that anything is copacetic and cool as long as it's sarcastic. So we're being totally sarcastic here, folks. There you go. Yeah, so the rules, the games, the tricks, the things that people play, and at the end of the day, people do what they want to do no matter what it says on the name tag, right?
Yeah.
There's all sorts of ways to wash it out and to make it work.
No, and so I'm watching the chat here, and I'm not arguing that Bitcoin's accepted. I'm not arguing that there isn't some value that people have agreed on. What I'm saying is there's nothing behind it. It is only worth today, whatever that market out there, however that's aggregated, says it's worth. And it's done nothing but skyrocket. It's not even ebb and flow, which is what you would normally expect in market dynamics. What concerns me is there's a skyrocket right now, which means when that thing comes down, it's going to leave a lot of people hurting.
Right. So it's also it's like if you talk about the value of gold and silver, even if you talk about any fungible product like a pork belly, or corn or concentrated orange juice, there are real world products and real world drives and design.
Yeah.
Everyone, very, very, very many, very, very smart people who Bitcoin. I know a lot of people who are very, very smart people who are libertarian anarchists, people who are smart, explore different things and go in different areas. And some of those areas are, risky. And some of those areas, prove successful for some people, and some people lose their shit. When it comes to Bitcoin, for me, is that I always try to explain to people, talk about the definition of fiat currency. These are ones and zeros. The limited supply is based on this one instance, this one paradigm called Bitcoin. And we already see things like Ethereum and different cryptocurrencies. The currency market is going to go absolutely fractal. You know what I mean? It's because this is the same thing that happens with things like, like Napster, or peer-to-peer sites, or things like this. Like once, if there's anything virtual, the virtual markets and the virtual products are the easiest to replicate and to try and do things with. And then the people say, oh, this country's adopting Bitcoin, or this country's adopting a Bitcoin, and then you look into it, and and sometimes things don't pass out. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, I can't believe that in 30 years in the future that people are going to be talking about one particular sets of ones and zeros. And I know that there's people out here that love Bitcoin. God bless you. And if you're right, I'm happy. All I'm an expert in is this: reality versus imaginary digital ones and zeros. That's the distinction, right? If paper and say this is worthless because there's no gold behind it, then what the fuck is behind a 1 and a 0 other than this sort of artificial scarcity? You can write a new other series of 20 million units of whatever, irreducible, I don't know what the fuck to tell these people.
In all seriousness, listening to the conversations that go on about these cryptocurrencies, my concern is that what we now have is a technocracy that's poised to begin running our financial system that's going to be more monstrous than what we've had running the Babylonian money system. Remember, these are people that know how to write code. And I know a little bit about code writers and a little bit about technologists and how this works. Code writers are not people that you would exactly say are transparent, and they're very abstract, and they're very secretive about what they do. And nothing against code writers, they're great people. But when you have a technocracy that takes over your economic system, your money system, and only they understand the algorithms behind it, because most people don't understand algorithms and code and what happens inside of a system that's streaming zeros and ones. They don't care, and they shouldn't. But it's a lot more abstract, and it's a lot more, let's just say you can really screw with this stuff on an intellectual level.
Right. And the thing about this is that, the arguments that I'm in, because I'm keeping an eye on the chat too here. So I think what's happened is that people are losing their, what happens is that people, well, number one, there are a lot of people in this current world that are emotionally attached to Bitcoin, right? Because, and I'm going to be completely honest here. I'm not speaking for I'm not making an allegation about everyone in the Bitcoin community. I'm making an allegation I'm talking about something that I think may be possible with some of the Bitcoin community, right? And that is, there might be a portion of the Bitcoin community who are very emotionally invested in a new paradigm or system that's going to take them from an economic scenario or situation to an economic situation scenario that they feel that they would be more happy in. And that's very, very common, and we see that a lot in this community. There's things like, the white dragon in society, Nigerian princes. People want to believe that there are systems and new things, paradigm shifting things that are going to happen, that are going to be able to, and investment opportunities occur. But, I always say, is that like anything, it's like, there are some people who are engaged in that's the thing that also happens to people on the internet. You say one thing about one thing, and then people think that it applies to them if they've got one kind of commonality with the target, right? If I say something about Bitcoin, and then someone's like, I got Bitcoin, and all of a sudden they get, incensed, like I'm saying, you were involved in Bitcoin because you're emotionally overinvested. No, it's some people are emotionally overinvested. And I tell people all the time, I go, no matter how many times you explain it to me, I'm still going to come back to, there's this thing called reality, where there are things, right, physical things of value that you could use, some of which whose intrinsic value will be worthless if the electricity goes off, and some of whom intrinsic value is innate, like an apple tree, right? An apple tree in year 0 or year 555. If you've got an apple tree in the vicinity and you're a human being, you're +1, right? You know what I mean? You're working with something, right? But ones and zeros are ones and zeros. I don't, you know what I mean? And that's the point, is that you can't tell me that there's an intrinsic value to these ones and zeros. They can't keep the rain off your head. Ones and zeros can't be planted in the ground. Ones and zeros are not real fucking things. It's imaginary. It's a magic trick. It only exists in the virtual reality of a computer system. There's no such thing as a Bitcoin. It doesn't exist. You know what I mean? It's imaginary. It's $3,000. It's not even a fucking Beanie Baby. You know what I mean?
That's where we've been with money anyway for a long time, because it's been in an electronic system. I mean, the biggest problem that we had was when people started trading electronically. Remember day traders back in the 90s, and then the micro traders, and then we have Goldman Sachs, and now we have the Koch brothers, and they're running these algorithms that let them trade in fractions of a second. And we have banks that are running back-end banking systems and Microsoft Windows NT servers that had back doors put in them that allows holes in the system where money just flows out constantly. And see, in an electronic atmosphere, it's no longer possible to have functional accounting. Everything's moving too fast. There's no freeze, let's stop, let's look at the pages for the day. It all just rolls over constantly. People play with that. That's why you're seeing people like, I don't know, the Koch brothers, Koch brothers, whatever you want to call them. That's how they're making their money. They're making their money based on what the Federal Reserve has called this fluidity, this constant motion of money, velocity of money, moving so fast. Nobody has this day when they sit down and count anymore. The market's closed. At the end of the day, they open back up, and boom, we're back in it again. We're having cycles we can't calculate.
Right.
With digital currency, it all just becomes an abstraction. At the end of the day, the human aspect of this is completely lost. That's my biggest concern. When I no longer reach out and hand you a dollar bill for a thing that you value and that I want, we've lost the human medium of exchange. And that's what we're doing. We've been doing it with credit cards, electronic payments, and with this impersonal system. We're losing human contact with money.
Right. The experience with a physical thing to ascertain at least the units that you have in your possession. You know, like the thing with, like, if everything's with this credit and this debit card, there's a book that was turned into a movie back in the early 90s and has now been serialized into a new internet Hulu broadcasted TV thing called The Handmaid's Tale, by a woman I believe the author's name was Margaret Atwood.
Right.
And we have a kind of, quasi New World Order scenario where, the religious right is absolutely taking control, and due to a variety of circumstances, both technological and biological, it's basically, despotic kind of, totalitarian future. And part of the way that it starts is the, complete digitalization of money. Because once all your money gets completely digitized, if I want to stop you, political enemy number 1,255 on my list today, all I got to do is flip that magic switch that says your magic card that you used to, your magic account connected to the chip in your wrist. Well, guess what, genius? You now own zero. Congratulations. You know what I mean? And who are you going to complain to? You know what I mean? The bank? Good luck with that, sister. Right? It's crazy.
I think, I'm looking at the comments in the chat room, and I understand where people are in this. And I will say this, I've considered buying a little bit of Bitcoin just to play with it. It's just kind of like, well, we all have hobbies. There's things we like to do. And let's just, let's see where this goes. I have an acceptable level of risk I'm willing to put myself into for that. But I'm not going to sell my house and put all my money into a cryptocurrency. Nor am I going to take funds that I need to pay bills and put it into cryptocurrency. As little as I like the present banking system, it's kind of working right now. Somehow or another, bills get paid.
Somehow the whole I was in New York City recently, and you look at a place like New York City or any big city,
Oh, I know.
and it's tempting to look around and say, how does all of this work? How does this chaotic mess hold together? But somehow it does, right? Somehow, the hip bone's connected to the leg bone's connected to the knee bone. Somehow the whole thing seems to work. Though it seems like the whole thing is teetering on the edges and imaginary in some way. So maybe we're just two old guys, you know what I mean? We're just, the kids today with their Bitcoin. Back in the day, we had dollars and cents. I tell you, Randy, and the kids today with their Bitcoin and their MTV music and their Napsters and their downloads, the internets and the YouTube things. I tell you, back in the day, it was better. You knew human exchange. You gave the guy $1 and he gave you the apple off the tree. Damn it. Those were the
just a couple of curmudgeons here. That's basically what it comes down to, isn't it?
Douchebags don't get Bitcoin. Meanwhile, in reality world, I don't care what you say, it's still imaginary ones and zeros.
So we have a date here. August 1st, we will see if Bitcoin experiment works or fails.
Really?
Okay. I'm good with that.
August, put it down. Put it down. So what? I mean, first of all, this guy you got to watch out in the chat. Thomas Kerwin is like Mr. Bitcoin. God bless him.
Oh, I know.
There you go.
Yeah.
August 1st. Why August 1st? So we'll figure it out. Why August 1st? But who knows? I mean, look, they should be successful. The people that I know that like Bitcoin, I have no problem with. If I turn on the TV, the guys like Thomas and, everyone else under the sun who experimented with Bitcoin, and Cliff High and their mother is a multi-billionaire because of Bitcoin. God fucking bless. I mean, good. I mean, in a world, would I like a world where a guy like Cliff High, no matter who he is, as crazy as I might find some of his ideas and concepts, do I want a world where a guy like Cliff High has $1 billion to play with? Yeah, sure. Why not? Rather him than the four aforementioned Koch brothers, right? I'm not saying that Cliff High is a fucking saint. I do think some of his ideas are off the wall. I have no idea if anything he says is legit at all, because I don't understand this stuff. They could all just be made fucking believe. But having said that, look, hey, and Corey Good. If I could flip a switch and say, listen, I did it. No. Hypothetically, let me ask you a hypothetical question. An angel appears before you with a button, and she says, Randy, before you, I have the magic button. You can either press it or not press it. And here's what's going to happen. If you press the button, Corey Good, the Corey Good, gets $1 billion. And if you don't press it, nothing happens. I come to you before you now. You have one choice and one choice only: to press the button or not press the button, to give Corey Good $1 billion or to do nothing. Would you give the guy $1 billion?
Yeah, because I'm not impoverished by it.
Hell yeah, I'd give him $1 billion.
They're taking it out of my pocket.
You gonna be that son of a bitch?
Sometimes you give people enough. Yeah, I mean, they say if a little's too much, give them enough to kill them. Why not?
I mean, just look at me. Like, if you have a choice to give somebody $1 billion or nothing, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Why give him? He's got kids.
I'm not envious.
You know what I mean? And I have enough faith that I have no idea what the heck else is going on in his world, but I have enough faith to say that if maybe, hopefully, God, Jesus Christ, then there you go. But here's the other question, right? If you give some guy you don't know $1 billion, do you have more responsibility? Okay, so you give him the $1 billion because he's got kids, but what if he's some sort of super freak, right? What if you just gave $1 billion to the guy who's going to be like, you ever see there's a movie with it was Ice-T and Rutger Hauer, Surviving the Game. You ever see that movie? It's like a tired premise. You know that movie? You know,
Yeah, I do.
yeah. Like, what
Yeah.
if you gave $1 billion to the dude who's going to be like, I know exactly what I'm going to do with this money. Cut
Yeah.
to, ladies, don't struggle. You will find your binds will hold you quite tightly. Welcome to my fungin. You know what I mean? Yikes. You know, you're the douchebag who presses the button. How did this happen? How did billions of people dead? Oh, God. Press the button. I had no idea. I thought it was a father, right? What's the guy going to do with $1 billion? I really didn't get it. I thought I'd get the guy. First of all, I thought it was like, yeah. I was sitting there going, the angel appeared before me, right, with the magic button. I thought to myself immediately, gee, I must have had a sudden back trauma, right? Because I have no idea why I'm having this experience. What's going on here? I thought I was tripping. What? I thought it was a dream, dude. Don't blame me. Don't blame whoever pierced you and say, if you press this button, CW Chanting gets $1 billion. Press the button. I swear to God, I'll be cool. I will be totally cool and chill. I won't mess with anybody. No fungins. It's going to be totally copacetic. Feel free to give me $1 billion. We'll watch out for anybody else. What are you going to do? I don't know. But I did. I popped the cherry on the conversation, if only to make a hypothetical existential point about choices. I don't know. Something.
Well, like I said, what I said before, you're not robbing me to give that to somebody else. I mean, I'm making a choice here that's an abstraction. I'm not harming myself. I don't know what the consequences are. Once you give somebody that much money, what they do with it becomes their moral burden. And I think that's a burden.
Right.
You know, do you ever think about what you would do with that much wealth? Because it's a burden. First off, you're losing 50% of it up front. So
I'll take that burden. I'll take that right on the chin. Take it, Uncle Sam.
Yeah, but materially, are you different? Are you better after that? You know,
it just gets more confusing, right?
Yeah.
Well, and then anybody in this community, sometimes there's an urge for people to think that I doubt everything. And I tell people, I go, no, listen, you know, when it comes to, you know, the shenanigans of the elite, right? I go, I know how people get jaded. It's just normal human behavior. If you observe normal human interaction, you're going to realize that people who are the sons and daughters of people who are the sons and daughters of the people who are sons and daughters of people who did everything under the sun to become the most shaded, twisted sex freaks known to man, you're going to know that people are going to be up to shenanigans and be doing weird things, right? I'm not saying that I doubt that the elites get into wild stuff, because that's what people with power do. Because what else are you going to do? You've done everything else.
We assume that, but when you meet these people, and I've met a couple of them, extremely bored people. They're struggling to figure out maybe what their next kick is, but there's not a lot to attain to, you know. And this goes back to the whole, does that make you better thing, is that I think life is about struggle. I really do. And I don't think it needs to be this grim misery thing, but I think we're beings that attain when we're pushing against things, when we're struggling, when there's acceptable levels of stress, acceptable levels of tension. Machines function under tolerance levels of pressure, torque, heat. Humans are like that. I mean, you can burn yourself out. You can burn your body out by being a workaholic, but you can do the same thing by sitting around being indolent all of your life too. So, you know, there's a fine tension that goes on in all of this.
Yeah, you know, absolutely. It's like, you know, this is something that I've experienced, is that I've seen people who will look back and having attained more success than they had than their family had growing up, They look at the generation of kids in wonderment of like why the kid isn't like them, like why the kid doesn't have the same work ethic, why doesn't the kid have the same drive and the same moxie? And I go, well, you know, because you wouldn't generate that sort of thing as you were talking about. Life makes you tougher. I mean, as simple as like if you want to be crass about it, go down to Las Vegas. If you go to any random boxing match, who are you gonna put your money on? Whoever you think is low on the socioeconomic food chain as a kid, put your money on that guy. That guy is gonna come out swinging. He's gonna be out there to win. It's just, and he's gonna have, as best as you're gonna be able to say, an indication of drive and success. He made it this far. You know what I mean? And like, as I grew up in I tell people all the time, I go, if you hear me talking about life on the wrong side of the streets, I'm bullshitting you. I grew up in a fine old neighborhood, and I can tell you that, you know, the hallmark of a fine neighborhood where the parents have done everything they can to give the kids everything that the kids want is drug abuse, sexual promiscuity, the self-destruction, and no drive and ambition whatsoever. There's nothing like growing up with a pool in the backyard to take the drive and ambition to strive and really kick your ass to make it right out of you. You know what I mean? Hang out here. It's cool. It's copacetic. It's fine. And that's this gross generalizations. But it's something that I noticed, and the thing about gross generalizations is that sometimes they're based on just a little kernel of truth. You know what I mean? Sometimes they ring true. You know? But who knows? But so that's what happens. You ever read Frank Herbert's Dune, Coming Out of Nowhere?
Yeah.
So here's, you know, and so this also ties into things like synchronicity. While I was on vacation in Israel for my brother's bar mitzvah. So to read a book like Dune in Israel is pretty trippy, right? Because the whole concept of the Fremen is that these are guys who they've got the least amount of technology of any house on the block, right? They've got the least number of resources, right? They're literally drinking their own pee, right? That's how limited their resources are, the Fremen. But yet they're the backbone of the revolution that starts a new change throughout the universe. And what's the whole concept of the Fremen? The whole concept of the Fremen is that if your life is just impossibly tough, where an environment where only the strong survive, you know what I mean? Watch out. You know, you're gonna end up, out of that kiln might come a very tough breed of hombre. Do you know what I mean? So you do need, you know, challenge, and you do need stress. And that's things that are interesting to focus on now, when a lot of people are talking about things like the basic human income, you know, where people are talking about a bold new future where, you know, everyone's going to get a check in the mail once a month. You know what I mean?
That's exactly where this goes to. Yeah.
So goes into things like the Matrix mythology of the Matrix movies. There was a portion of the Matrix mythology that was explained in a series of animated shorts called the Animatrix. And one of them basically posited that, you know, what happened and why did the AI take control? Is because if you give human beings an excuse to lie down in the lazy boy down at the mini mall with a gigantic 32-ounce Slurpee and a 64 inch television screen in HD blazing virtual reality, fuck your mom, they're gonna opt for that every time, no problem. Lie down and be counted. You know what I mean? Humans like it easy.
Now I was looking at the chat here, and I noticed people were drawing this distinction there. There is a difference. We have been, in some ways, sort of rats on a treadmill in the culture, you know, because we're working to support a system. There's a difference. You know, I don't think people should work to support a system. I think systems should work to support the system overall, but the hierarchy tends to frame this as now we basically are, we live to serve their system. Right. But the system doesn't really support us. So it's an inversion of what it should have been. So the struggle now, that's when the struggle becomes revolutionary, it becomes political, because the inversion's recognized, and that's kind of where we're at. But the downside to this is we go back and we reset, which is what people were talking about. And the Dragon family gives us like 20 trillion in gold, and everybody gets a guaranteed income for life, and everybody gets free land, and we don't have to struggle anymore. And in 20 years, what you have is you basically, they've scooped up all the money, all the land again, and we're right back to where we were because we weren't challenged enough, vigilant enough, and we weren't taxing ourselves to attain to another level.
Right. Yeah, the hypothetical world of tomorrow where everything becomes equalized. Like imagine if there was an imaginary super hacker who was able to come along and reset the whole system, where they took the whole GDP of the whole global system, right, and equalized it amongst every man, woman, and child with an account that resources could be poured into, an equimanious amount would be poured into, and say, even if you did that, the billions and billions, the trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of wealth spread out over the billions and billions of people on planet Earth, everybody would get something. And the very next day, the unscrupulous would start picking upon the credulous, yeah, right, and taking advantage. And before you know it, you have the exact same system. People are going to be still playing the game. Even if you shoot it out to base value, it'll still aggregate into natural peaks and valleys, right? The haves and the have-nots. The fool and his money is soon parted. You know what I mean? And the jerk and money soon will connect.
I heard somebody say once, if it wasn't for the elites, we wouldn't even have inside plumbing. And I had to stop and think about that for a minute. Is that true? I don't know. But the weird thing is, my grandparents in the 1930s did not have inside plumbing. They were farmers. They were, by today's standard in terms of wealth, they were worth some money. But they had an outhouse. They didn't have inside plumbing. Are we grateful for inside plumbing, or are we bitching about the price that it cost us to lay the pipes, which was the easements and the taxes and all the things that went into building infrastructure, which then created the vertical hierarchy? I don't know. Would I go back to that? I might, because I don't really have an aversion. I don't require a porcelain facility. But it's kind of nice on those cold nights when you're going shit, man.
I'm not looking for I tell people all the time, I go, I play from within the system, and I explain to people all the time. I go, look, I live in the real world. There are people that are like, eat only couscous and don't have a television in their home. You know what I mean? And I tell those people, God bless you. God bless you, Mr. Ethical, Mr. and Mrs. Ethical. I will concede I'm mired in the system, and from within the system we look around and say some things are good and some things are bad. But I agree, it's one of those things, and we were talking about before about the compromises that we make to get our voices out there, to engage in any process, right? Mm-hmm. To look at it and say, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that, but you still do these things in order to achieve an end, knowing then is this whole putting my voice out there on the internet, am I achieving some sort of good, or is that just a farce to excuse this whole masturbatory act of bullshitting on the public airwaves, right? You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Do you know what I mean? Or
what we're doing here is however many people are out there. However many people are out there right now on the chat or see this later, we're just provoking things, thoughts, ideas, in some cases, vehement hatred, in some cases, passion. But we're just tossing ideas out. We're no different than the other people out there. We're just a little more extroverted in terms of how we express things. Right. And maybe I have a couple good ideas and you have a couple good ideas, and people get to draw off that deck. It's a deck of cards. So, maybe you get a good hand tonight and you come back with something. But we're not going to solve the world's problems doing this. In fact, nobody's going to do that.
And that's the thing, is that like when you think about it, really, I mean, this is like even if you like, okay, the ancient Norse conception of the holy heavens, that one would go after good life, Valhalla, is this concept of this world of eternal war, eternal struggle, where everyone will just be able to play this game over and over again, because that's the game, I guess, that they defined as being the highest value or quality of life. So it's like, like I often think, like I always make references to things like soap operas and professional wrestling in regards to this kind of conspiracy world, in the sense that round and round it goes. And it's this cycle that looks like it's going somewhere, 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 it's going somewhere. For this year, next year, the whoop starts all over again. So it's that 2012 or Y2K, Y2K, nothing happens. 2012, you know what I mean? It's just the system that keeps on. And you dip in and you dip out, and after a couple of years you come back, you'd be like, oh, just like people remember the guys and the bad guys. And the first, you come back after a long time away, you don't know all the players. Who are these new wrestlers? CW Chanter, whatever happened to Jordan Maxwell? What's Maugans? Won't you bring me back that old Eustace Mullins? Wow, what's going on? The kids today. But if you stick in it, and then all of a sudden you start to know the new players, and you see the new games, right? And then it goes round and round and round, so you get bored and drop off again, right? But disclosure, ascension, it's like the second coming of Jesus. It's this thing that's always
it is. Ascension's just rapture.
But I guess that's what else you gonna do on planet Earth?
No, having said that, there are some things that I passionately believe. And I will tell you, I was on the air in 2012. I was doing a show on Wolf Spirit Radio back in the Dave Corso days. And I did a lot of stuff on 2012 that year. And we got to the end of the year, and it was amazing to watch. After December 21st, people were either despondent because they hadn't been lifted up into the clouds by the mothership, or they were thoroughly fucking pissed because they hadn't been annihilated and the earth hadn't been devastated. There was no in between with the emotional scale here. There was just a lot of people that went, what happened? Nothing happened. But actually things were happening. We actually are in a different epoch right now than we were in 2011. Very different scenario. But from a cosmological standpoint, we don't really appreciate how shifts occur in consciousness and how many things have really changed a lot. And some for better and some for worse. I think what's good is people realize how screwed they are right now. I think that's the part that's the most interesting. More people now know they're screwed than ever knew they were screwed before.
Well, do you think
that's progress?
Right. Do you think that 2012 is just 2012 was something that people were talking about, and it happened to coincide with a reawakening or reevaluation of the scenario by people, or just a natural way of people being frustrated with a frustrating and unjust system and waking up to seeing things in a new way? Or do you think that there's something cosmological or about the whole 2012 phenomena, where what we're experiencing now is, so some would say, would be the predictions of the ancients of a new age or a new cycle of human development occurring?
Doesn't actually matter, does it? Is it cause or is it effect? That's the interesting thing about it. What if all of that was just tossed out there randomly and they went, well, let's see if they go for this one. And we went for it. We played the whole thing down. And we're like, but we kind of didn't descend. Oh, look, now we're really screwed. Crap. Obama got a second term. Crap. Now what do we do? Banks are still failing. Crap. We're screwed. And at the same time, they're going, but you're screwed and I know I'm screwed. So we're all screwed together. So we're better off this way. And somehow in that, there's a sense of purpose. So it doesn't matter what caused it. The thing is, more people now are aware, more people are looking for solutions, more people are beginning to form communities, which I think is a good thing. I think there is a real sharp separation in terms of people who are very base and very crude and people who are really honestly trying to find solutions. And I think those divisions became like the contrast dial on a TV set. We just tweaked it that much and it's like, crap, that's pretty sharp. Those edges are pretty sharp on the black and white picture now. It doesn't matter what the process was. Well, but I think it's fascinating to watch it from a media standpoint.
I mean, I don't know if this is where you're going from it. I mean, if I try to understand what you laid out, I could say this much is that, I believe in the power of positive thinking. I believe that, you're presented with scenarios. You can either find ways to look at it to knock it down, or you can find your best try and create a scenario or a context where it leads to hope, or leads you to a glimmer of hope that can provide you motivation for moving on to the next part of the struggle. But at the same time, you got to be careful, because you could imagine a nightmare scenario where it's like the opiate of the masses. Is like religion a palliative thing that makes life better or more easy to deal with, or is it the quote unquote opiate of the masses, blinding people to the harsh nature of reality around them, that they must know and understand if they're to understand reality, and therefore to be said to have lived any sort of life at all. So I mean, the 2012 happened, the 2012 not happen. Like, okay, so I have a friend who is no longer incarnate on planet Earth, though as an act of kind of spiritual remembrance, even though I believe that when you die, you die, I still allow myself, a part of myself, to imagine this man, Hank Jones, still living, as he still exists. And 2012 was so important to him that he, would recount. If you look at the dating of his YouTube videos before he no longer was physical on Earth and therefore making YouTube videos, he would date things like like the year would be 0004. Like he was dating things off of 2012. Like that's how palpable the transition was to him, or how important that was to him. But I was there in 2012, and I remember, being like, fuck, you know what I mean? Like, I would have loved if the shit that people were talking about on the Netflix programs, documentaries, and on the TVs, and the Mayan calendar, and we're all going to turn to rainbow beings, we're going to send to here knows where and whatever, and screw the Babylon banking system. It's going to be all this, that. There's a paradigm shift, and we're all going to go to third dimensional, fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional heaven, right? And none of that shit happened. You woke up on December 22nd, 2012, and guess what? There you fucking were, right? In your crappy old skin suit. You goddamn changed. You know what I mean? And the bag is tapped. You know what I mean? And your box of wine is empty. And then certain people go, it happened. It really did happen. And are those people just fooling them? Is it all just a sad game? Or are the people who say it really did happen, are they the smart ones? You know what I mean? That's the risk, right? That's the risk. That has to do with the whole thing of things turning into cults, or what happens when faith goes bad, right? We all have a spiritual sense, but we all know that there's nightmare scenarios where the shit can go cuckoo. So where do you draw the line, and how do you, are you just making, excuses for the thing, or are things really different, or is this just the
but
way it's always been?
You just said you believe in the power of positive thinking.
Right.
Therefore, you're projecting out something that's an energetic force. It's a hope. It's a vision. It is positively directed, whether it is, I'm going to have a good day tomorrow. I'm going to have a prosperous week. I'm going to have a kick-ass year. I'm going to live to see my kids graduate college and be married and have beautiful lives and beautiful homes. We project all of this stuff through imagination. Kara St. Louis talks about this. So effectively, we are generating reality in that sense. Our reality is at least malleable enough that it allows for us to fine tune it in certain ways, even if we don't completely change the whole picture. And we do that individually and we do it collectively. So if the energy shift of 2012 pushed things down 2 clicks on the dial towards, okay, we know we're screwed now, but we also know that our awareness of this now lets us begin to push things towards a better solution, towards a better collective future. And if not, at least I have enough vision to begin preparing my life to move in a positive direction, which has a certain inertial force that'll push everything else in a certain direction. So to say that 2012 didn't happen, there was so much expectation built into it, it couldn't possibly be fulfilled, but there was a seed there that I see that did get fulfilled, that's still playing out in the time stream.
Right. So, I mean, for me, it's like, whenever I deal with this spiritual stuff, this stuff that's not of tangible reality, this stuff that is of faith, of hope, of beyond the veil, I'm always very wary to know that I'm wandering into a mental health hazard zone, right? Because, there's 1,003 conjectures and arguments floating out there about the subtle nature of reality, right? The quote unquote real nature of reality. So to think of 2012 and the power of positive thinking, it's like you want to be open-minded, but you don't want to be so open-minded that your head falls out, right? Because I'll tell you, you know what I mean? If you go out with too positive an attitude about the way things are, you might find yourself in some kind of messed up scenarios. And at the same time, I mean, there's one thing to talk about. We talk about 2012 in isolation, but you and I both live in a community where there's some people that are talking about things like 2012. And then there's some people that talk about things like various political conspiracies. Okay, a horse of a slightly different color. And then you also have people that talk about things like star seeds. And then you also have people that talk about things like the fundamental underpinning nature of, holographic 3D reality, right? And then you have people that talk about things like military abductions and weird programs. And, to what degree do we want to have the power of positive thinking leading us to open worldviews and open vistas? We're able to take a new idea at a point where we have to, as hard it is, define some boundaries and say, okay, having said all that, 2012 didn't happen. We didn't turn into beings of pure light. Whatever the big things that people were talking about 2012 didn't fucking happen. And if we want to spin, because of the power of positive thinking, that, okay, yeah, that didn't happen, but this did, that's beautiful. But it's also kind of can be a little bit dangerous, because you can imagine yourself, it's like the same way that people stay in dysfunctional relationships, right? This time it's going to be different, or justifying it. He was just, he lost his job. You know how he gets on Sunday. You know what I mean? And round we go. Not saying I'm not, and I am to a degree playing quote unquote devil's advocate, right? Saying, okay, well, let's still look at it, even though, hey, what do I have against 2012? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The only thing I have against 2012 is that I thought life would be really easier on the other end here. I thought there's a part of me that I tell people all the time, I get why people believe in these things. Here I am, you know what I mean? Sweat on my brow, just like, old Adam, coming out of the garden, toiling for my labor, getting fatter by the day. Get me another leaf, you know what I mean? But, we keep on I'm not trying to bitch and complain, but at the same time, like 2012, it's a beautiful thing. But shouldn't we just be honest and say, hey, also at the same time, while we do want to say 2012 did happen, let's also acknowledge the fact that, hey, we should be wary of these magical points. And I mean, do people really realize that they're more screwed nowadays? I mean, don't we also run the risk of we run in these small circles and we spend this time in this world?
Yes,
I mean,
we do.
We think that this is I mean, if you go out into the you and I both at the end of the conclusion of today, if you're anything like me, tomorrow morning will be another work day. And we'll have to get our ass out of bed. And if there's kids in our house, we're going to have to get their ass off to school. And we're going to have to go and do what we got to do, whether it's change a tire, mow a lawn, hang a hook, write a paragraph in a computer journal, whatever the hell you got to do. Everyone's got to do what they got to do. There's the real world. If you stop any rando at the CVS, Walmart, Arby's, Target, you know what I mean? Mall of America, Shell Station, hospital, ER, police department, whatever. If you ask anybody anywhere if they know anything about the Blue Avians, Corey Gooder, David Wilcock, and this whole controversy with Linda Moulton Howe, they're all going to say Linda Moulton who? And if you say anything about UFOs or anything about anything, they're going to finally round around to go, maybe if they're old enough, say, you mean like the X-Files? You know what I mean? This is we think that this is not happening. This is not what's happening. As people are talking about all these like random little ebbs and currents within this little tiny community, in the big world, crazy shit going down. And we could feel like, oh, this is happening or that's happening, but is it just feel that way because we're playing a kind of consensual role-playing game with each other, saying like people are waking up, or there's a process called awakening, or being red-pilled, or realizing that everything you learned in high school is wrong. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I said, to a big degree, I may be playing devil's advocate here. I mean, I certainly don't want that to be the case, but I can certainly see how that kind of is the case. Do you know what I mean? Like it or lump it, that it just might seem like things are changing. How many billions of people around the world are still smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, eating meat? You know what I mean?
Eating sugar, GMO foods. I mean, look, there's endless, and that's all true. And yet I can tell you in my day-to-day life, there are glimmers where I see people that 5 years ago would have never brought up aerosoling, chemtrails, geoengineering, whatever you want to call it. They've looked at the sky now. They're going, that really doesn't look good. What the hell is that? And I get my own family who thinks I'm certifiably crazy, and justifiably so.
Right.
It's like, and I've told this story on the show before. They're contacting me on Facebook, and they've taken pictures with their phones, and they're like, can you explain this to me? And I'll be, sure, glad to. I wrote an article on this 5 years ago. Boom, send it off to them.
Right.
And they think I'm a fucking genius. I'm not a genius. I was just running 3 steps ahead of a learning curve that they're just now getting to. And in the continuum, that's where people are. We're all, in some ways, geniuses, and in other ways, we're hopelessly autistic. But we're all ideally what we're doing is we're pulling each other across the finish line rather than trying to run over the poor bastard that fell over 4 feet short of the line. That's the way I view this. So even though I may sound delusional and crazy in some of the things I believe, I'm visioning things that are also out there in the future as a hope for people. That's kind of why I do what I do. And if it's crazy and it's insane and it's impractical, some of it is. But I hang on to that for my sake because I need to be able to dream too. And I think that's what a lot of this is about.
Yeah, no, I mean, without, so at the same time that I'll play devil's advocate, I'd be willing to switch positions and say that I can concur with you there, because at the same time that I play devil's advocate and I ask these questions, it's like people think I'm a Doubting Thomas or think that I'm a hater in this community, and I'm just trying to say that I'm just trying to create a strike of balance, right? To say that I concede when I look up at the skies that there's something weird, right?
Yeah.
I can tell whether it's the result of some sort of psychological aspect of how humans think, that I'm misremembering the past, or there's some trick of my imagination, or that there's just some other explanation that I don't know. I can tell you that looking up at the skies, that growing up back in the day, you'd see a trail after a plane every once in a while, right? But to see these crisscross patterns and X's, complex things, I tell people, I can see and understand that there's something going on in the sky. A lot of times I try to tell people, I understand the questions that people are asking. My big thing is people rushing to the answer too quickly, of saying that I'm willing to say that at this point, as a community, we can look up and say, oh, we've taken a kind of tally. We've gotten a sense of popular consensus, right? And the popular consensus is the skies of today don't resemble the skies of yesteryear.
No, they don't.
That we can see that there's something going on. And then we can look at things like the rise of things like autism. Like when I was growing up, when the word autism was entered in my vocabulary, and it wasn't until the movie Rain Man, right? That was the first. It was when you saw the character there was a movie with Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman in the late '80s called Rain Man, and it involved a guy hooking up with his long lost brother. They had been from a broken home. They had gone. One brother had gone into adoption, and the brother Dustin Hoffman was a highly functioning autistic. And it was the first time I'd ever heard of such a thing. It was the first time anyone had heard really of such a thing, unless you were one of those rare people who had this extremely rare neurological disorder in your family. But nowadays, there's special autism schools in almost in tons of places.
There's an entire spectrum. I mean, it's not just one thing. Yeah.
And then you get to Asperger's and things. It's like now there's autism everywhere. It's like, oh, it was introduced to us in the late '80s, and then all of a sudden it's as it's as common, and not as hen's teeth. It's now as common as hen's feathers, right? And what's going on? And is that the result of new diagnoses or what, or is there something happening? What's going on? I don't know. But I don't know whether
it's not better diagnosis. The myth of this is, the more you look at it, you did not have children whose affective ability was when they stared you in the face, nobody was there. That there was no eye contact. I mean, that was such an aberration. It was almost unthinkable, and it has now become pronounced. It is skyrocketed, just as we are beginning to see all these autoimmune diseases that have flourished to the point where you have things growing out of your body now. I mean, we're at that place. Morgellas, yeah. So we're at the place where the manifestation of the changes around us are showing up in our bodies. And that's real. That you have to deal with. And the more people become aware of this, then you begin to see the shift in the consciousness again. That's a bad thing, but it's followed by something positive that we can do. Awareness does equal a propensity to begin to move the conversation in another direction. If I thought humans were impotent enough, if I thought we weren't capable of changing this, there would be no point in doing it. Dig a bunker, put in 25 years of food, get a good fuel supply, and lock yourself down. And I don't believe that.
Right. So, I mean, like we mentioned Morgellons. I mean, like, here's the thing. So, in this moving through this world, I open my mind up to as many different voices as possible in the hopes that the stupid monkey me will be able to gather up enough information to put together a fair vision of the truth, or a fair vision of reality, or the extended reality available to us in this technologically infused world. So we get to things like Morgellons or AI black goo, right? Or the Zeta Reticuli. And there are people with testimony and stories and data and analysis and research. And then there's people with contrary analysis, data, and research, or contradictory information. And I sit there and I try and say, I want to acknowledge and not be cruel to the person who thinks that they're suffering from Morgellons. I don't want to be cold and indifferent, but at the same time, I don't want to make believe that there's not some medical reportage that says that what we call Morgellons might be the result of, a variety of different, skin lesion diseases or disorders that people are picking up or noticing. The most common excuse for these fabric-like or these fiber-like growth ruptures is that it's something to do with like people accidentally getting cross-contamination of gauze pads or cloth or bits of clothing or hair that gets, caught up in things like, pus or blood, not to gross anybody out, and that this is what people are seeing. These are the things that people are observing, maybe some people who are not necessarily in their right mind for a variety of reasons, or maybe just, under duress because they're suffering from an undiagnosed asymptomatic disorder or disease. And so I try to strike a balance because I don't know, because I see a lot of the people that are purported experts in this community or whose research is presented to me. I look at it and I go, geez, this guy sounds like a guy who sounds like a doctor on a pay-per-view infomercial, but he doesn't sound like his credentials sound like the credentials I'd expect to hear or someone to have if they were on, 60 Minutes talking about cancer research or Ebola from the National Institute of Health. You know what I mean? They sound like outliers. They sound like people who could be just people. I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to be cruel to anybody. You've got a friend, Duncan O'Finian, who's got a story. I have a friend, Shane. His story's fucking completely crazy to me. You know what I mean? I can't understand it other than as a fiction. I don't believe. I don't want to be cruel or mean.
But nobody's asking
I
you
don't
to believe either. That's the whole point. And so I could tell you things about myself you wouldn't believe. Because I think
things about myself I don't believe myself. That makes sense.
I think where we get to in this community, and this is the thin line we walk, we've shared stories with each other, for better or for worse, narratives, experiences. Some of them are quite unbelievable. To try and convert anybody to the idea, because Shane isn't going to demand you believe his story. He's already said that. Duncan O'Finian, I've spent days with the guy. He's not going to demand you believe his story. Right. The resonance pattern, more than anything else, comes, pardon me, comes from, hold on a second.
No problem, take your time.
The resonance pattern comes more or less from people who have similar or the same experiences, and then there's some validation. And I don't think anybody's looking. we live in this world where we have this kind of whistleblower mentality. Well, if we just tell enough people about this, surely somebody will solve the problem. Nobody's going to solve the problem. Nobody's going to solve the problem of implants that are put in your body, whether it's by aliens or intelligence agencies. It's not going to solve the problem of traumatic abuse, whether it's by bloodletting Satanists or government CIA agencies. What it is, it's a form of sharing of experiences that's both validating and then initiating a healing process. On one level, that's what it's about. The voyeurs who watch this type of material, there's a multitude of people in these type of communities. Some of them are curious. Some of them are voyeuristic. Some of them will take on the attributes of an alien abductee, a victim of satanic ritual abuse, somebody who's been in an MK Ultra program. I've seen all of this. I've seen transference in these communities where people have just gone, you know, I really do think I was abducted. I've got this, damn it, where is that? You see this, and I'm not trying to be facetious because like you, I don't want to project cruelty onto people's experiences. Right. By the same token, I've heard enough of this now in the 8 years that I've done this show to validate that there is something to the stories. There's a resonance within me about some of this stuff on a personal level, and there's also a resonance in terms of I believe what these people are telling me to be an experience they believe happened. And if they believe that, then it's important enough to hear it.
Right.
And if there's enough commonality and we have enough of a pattern of people who have never met each other but share the same information, then I think we've got a reasonable sense that perhaps maybe there's a phenomena here and we can look at it. But again, we're looking at it from the standpoint of a small group of people sharing experiences. We're not doing the, hey, here's another whistleblower this week, and they're going to tell you all about the official information that you don't have official information for, because that's bullshit. You know, most of this community right now are just prime for plucking because they want to buy fantasy fairy tale bullshit from people who are nothing more than paid liars, frankly put out there by the same people who probably really are doing the torture, murder, and rape, being government agents and government-sponsored crime syndicates. So I'm enough of a conspiracy theorist to see both sides of this thing work through, because I've seen enough of both sides of it in action. So I don't know if that helps at all to explain.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, it definitely helps to explain, you know, your point of view. I mean, where it brings us though is like kind of the point where we might be entering the kind of the nexus of disagreement. We're not necessarily disagreement that has a patina
and I'm
to it, but
fine
you know
with
what
that.
I mean?
You know that,
yeah, no, absolutely.
No, I'm good with that.
Where there's things that I think that probably you accept as being like, there's things that I like so for example, when it comes to things like the work of John Mack, right, the Harvard psychologist who studied the alien abductee phenomena, and you know the people that were in his tutelage who have now continued the experience. I know there's another guy out there I believe at a Temple University. I can't remember his name, unfortunately.
Jacobs, yeah.
Oh yeah, Jacobs, whose work
I've interviewed Dave Jacobs. I know Dave Jacobs.
Oh, he's a great. I tune in whenever I see him. That he makes it. He doesn't come out as much as a lot of other people. When he does, I'm aware of his work, and I'm tuned in to that. And I kind of, that's where I kind of can, like, I had an interview with a guy named Derek Tyler, and post that interview, I did say that I was willing to accept the fact that for whatever, that there was like as you said, a phenomenon that exists, though I might not understand the 1 + 1 = 2 of it. I might not understand the mechanics of it. I'm willing to accept that there is something, there's enough information being generated by a random sampling of human population to say that there's something going on. And what it is, whether it's an aspect of human psychology, a mistaken, a collective brain fart, that there's something, what they say, the sleep paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
So is the interface with an interdimensional entity, an extra-dimensional entity, an extraterrestrial entity, or military weirdos who just like to dress up like grays to fuck people in the ass. Whatever it actually is, I'm willing to accept that there's an experiential phenomena that a collective of the human population is happening. But like I said, like we live in a world where what's risky is you want to acknowledge the existence of that phenomena, but like as you said, there's a problem because the people in the support groups who are sharing their traumatic experiences of lifelong trauma that they can't explain. I have a sympathy to those people. I don't have a sympathy to the people who seem to be the other kind of contactee who are, as we say, in the spotlight, as it were, writing books, publications, appearances, ka-ching, 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 soul readings, whatever the case may be, the other breed. So we have a situation where we have a reality where you and I might meet, but it's like, how do we interact with that reality, and how do we get the wheat from the chaff? How do we preserve what's real, and at the same time distinguish between what is just fantasy? And also, when it comes to your boy Duncan, I mean, here's the thing with me and Shane. I've lost all ability to be able to work with Shane's material, right? Because now that we're friends, I've lost all fucking objectivity.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would person X, person Y, person Z. Isn't that a risk that we inherently run, where we're talking to people, we're trying to communicate, we're trying to understand experiences, but there are these very fine lines that we can jump over into this kind of hypocrisy. I mean, it's weirdness because, like I said, when this whole thing is going on with the current fall, people criticizing people, you shouldn't criticize, that's not white light. If you think there's just nothing but benevolent, if you think that just it's fear porn, yada yada, back and forth during this whole shenanigans, there are people that are saying, well, I agree with you that we should do X, Y, and Z, or this part of the story is problematic, but at the same time that I see you call that part of the story problematic, on the other hand, isn't that very similar to how this guy or that guy operates? Or isn't it the case that Shane's story is as equally unsupported by any sort of evidence?
But Shane never presented that story to be, and you know this, and I know this, and we don't probably even need to say it, so let me put it to you this way. Shane's story was put out there for a selective group of people who were exactly that. They were a group of people who had questions about common experiences, a shared background. Duncan and Finian, on the other hand, went very public. He did Jesse Ventura's show. He did a series of interviews on Project Camelot. Duncan went full public, and he knew that from day one. First off, that's not his real name. He had the advice of an attorney to use a name when he went out because of his family and because of certain things that he was going to bring out. And so the two are not the same. There are overlaps. So nobody who does this, who goes high profile public, telling a story that's outside the accepted narrative, does so thinking that everybody's going to buy it. And in fact, there's going to be active resistance to that type of narrative. And in fact, it's very difficult to have that narrative because, remember, the person presenting the narrative has themselves been compromised in some way. So people who come out of MK Ultra type projects already know they're compromised. They already know that even their own memories, by definition, are compromised. We're not dealing with the normal presentation of a normal narrative. We're still dealing with a body of testimony that streams out across multiple experiencers, multiple witnessers over time. And the only tenor of truth for any of that is where you begin to see patterns, where there's resonance, and where you don't sense that somebody either has something to gain from it or that they're just trying to pull a big one over on you. That's kind of...
Yeah, believe you me, and look, I mean, what do I know from what's actually possible in the world? Do you know what I mean? Like I concede to people that when I engage with this material, that I say, look, I come from a world where my basis of experience indicates that what you are telling me is fantastical and can't possibly be true, right? Now, when you evoke the name MK Ultra, the stuff is like, I believe. See, that's the thing. MK Ultra was a real thing, right?
Yes.
MK Ultra. There are people that there were CIA. There were investigations by Congress. There were materials
the Rockefeller
disclosed on.
Commission.
Yeah. There was information disclosed under FOIA requests. We know what MK Ultra is, but in today's world, see, this
Hold
is
on
the
1
problem
second.
that
I got to let my cat out. 1 second.
No problem. People thought it was my cat. I think it was his. Disgusting. Eternal damnation.
Okay.
You guys are weirdos.
My cat was seriously panicking.
No, hey, listen.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
It's just one of those things you got to do. It's life, man.
Absolutely. You know,
Continue.
People have to be put to bed. People have to be let in, let out. It is what it is.
Yeah.
No, but so when it comes to nowadays, I live and I try and explain to people that, like, I'm aware of the fact that there's government cover-ups and collusion, that there were things like MK Ultra, that there were things like the Tuskegee experiments, that Quakers and other nonviolent, passive, resistors, who were, had to, sign up for the draft, how they were used in government military experiments, like with radiation, and see how close to an atomic bomb a person could get. We know that messed up things happen. We know about things like sex abuse rings or things that go down in with human trafficking or sex tourism in the Southeast Asia or in Russia or in the Middle East. We know that these terrible things exist, but then we have these people who come along and they invoke the names of these horrible programs, but then want to use that as an excuse or as a smokescreen to create all these other plausible scenarios and fantasies. And some of these people might just be merely delusional, and I think some of these people are fucking lying. You know what I mean? Like an MK Ultra. Like, we know what MK Ultra was. They gave prisoners LSD. They did this, that, and the other thing. We know what it was. And it wasn't fucking, training up augmented soldiers. It wasn't, training people to cloud burst and, to do this and other thing. And then we have all the shenanigans. And,
I don't think those programs ever went away. You say MK Ultra was. As far as I'm concerned, look, they turned that one out the door. That was the tar baby they threw over to keep people happy. The earlier programs that preceded it and the ones that came after it, it's never stopped. We have programmed killers that pop up in our culture routinely that exhibit all the symptoms of people who have been through traumatic type programs. Exhibiting, by the way, in some cases, pretty extraordinary abilities to be able to fire weapons really well, like the Virginia Tech killings in 2007. That's some pretty extraordinary fucking marksmanship went on there. That guy in very short order took out, 30 people in one room, moving from room to room, weapon, just boom. When I see this and I follow the statistics on what we're calling false flags now, the mind control systems that were piloted in those early programs were really just that. They were designed to weaponize human beings in a way that we are now seeing manifested into the culture. So whether we believe the individual people who come forward there's enough testimony present to me indicates that these programs not only were successful, were implemented, but in fact that those programs always did continue. This is just part of the, what I call the hierarchy, the levels above top secret. I know you are skeptical about this in terms of the shadow government and what sits above the government as it's presented to us proper. And that's an important distinction, because if you honestly believe that our government is straight up, that what you see is what you get, I can't really argue with that. But I would say, go back and look at the historical evidence on 2 points. You can go back and read 2 books that appeared in the 1960s. One is The Manchurian Candidate. The other is Operation Mind Control by Walter Boert. Both of those books, in different ways, document what was effectively the expansion of MK Ultra into the military and into the population general through social engineering. And then read Dr. Carol Quigley's Tragedy and Hope. Dr. Quigley, the mentor of Bill Clinton at Georgetown University, a Jesuit, who tells you flat out, there's an order above the present system. I have no problem with it. It exists. And then he tells you who they are and what they're doing. And so these are fundamentals that at least give you a working set of tools to understand that none of this is really out of the kin of reality at all. And so I take it seriously to the degree that I've talked to enough people, I've interviewed enough people. Do I believe everyone? No. Do I believe everything that everyone tells me? No. But I have a database of knowledge that tells me, and a sense inside myself based on things I've seen, things I've experienced, things I've heard, and things I've researched. There's a knowing that says, yes, there's some truth to this. There is truth to this. This is real. And these people are telling us things we need to know about how our governments operate and how our society is being manipulated. And to me, that's very important. Which goes to the other side of the argument, which is the bullshit artists out there who have decorated the room and made it look all festive and cool and hip and want $1,000, $10,000 to do a speaking engagement for a weekend to sell you fantasies about things that don't exist. They're just pissing in the swimming pool, frankly. So I just kind of drew for you my spectrum on all this, good, bad, or indifferent.
No, and I appreciate that you were very open. I think I got a good glimpse of how you put it together. And like I said, there's a lot of stuff that I agree, like I believe in, and I don't mean to like soft pedal it. I'm not talking about small C conspiracy. I believe that there are conspiracies. I don't believe that 9/11 occurred the way that the mainstream media presents it. And
I know that.
You know what I mean, or any of the things, or the assassination of JFK, or all these things, or Area 51 or Roswell. Believe you me, I believe that to a large degree. Where there's smoke, there's fire. But I also know that at the same time that I'm reading and accessing and digesting these materials, so are the liars. So, and there's all sorts of arguments that kind of get put out there that I see recently that I think are kind of, I get how they work, but I think that I have a duty and an obligation to point out the thing that they show or they say nothing. Where there's a group of people that seem to be, their credibility is couched on, I'm not charging you for this money. These other people are playing this money game. They're playing this book game. I'm not out here doing that. Leaving aside if they charge extra money for this service or that service, or they're meeting people online or talking to people or just getting their ego stroked, they say, like Donald Marshall. Donald Marshall says, "Why am I doing this? I'm not making any money off this. I'm doing this for no money. So why would I lie about this when I'm not getting made any money? If I'm not trying to charge you money, I'm not charging you money." Well, he doesn't need to charge you money because he lives on disability in Canada. And he's made an agreement, a soul contract with his own life to say, I'm willing to sit here in a fucking trailer park or in the world's worst apartment, brings me X amount of fame on Facebook, and I get X amount of donations via PayPal. That means that I can buy imported beer and just sit here, and occasionally get a dime bag off my fucking second cousin, or whatever the case may be. And I think there's other cats out there that make that same argument. I'm not charging money, therefore I must be legit. To which I say that there's a thousand ways that people can get paid without money. Even just getting numbers, getting hits, being that guy. Do you know what I mean? Appearing on this show, appearing on that show, even if it's for gratis, even if you're just talking to one guy every month. Still, it feels good to be told that you're somebody. But that's not me having that feeling doesn't mean that there's not people out there who have had crazy life experiences that would be absolutely paradigm shifting for me if I were to understand the true nature of the reality. I'm not saying that I have experienced everything and I know everything, but I'm saying that I'm just sitting here saying, like you, it's just where we cut that line of like, how do we let the truth in, have an expansive worldview where we can let new data and new information in that challenges our conception of reality, that challenges our consensus opinion, but at the same time have enough kind of solidity to our project where we can filter out some stuff that just sounds like BS to me. Mm-hmm. Right?
And by the same token, you're also expressing views that other people hold as well. Look, it's a useful conversation, and Absolutely. It's why you and I talking to each other.
Sure.
Because I'm not asking you to buy anything in terms of my scope of inquiry, and I'm not tamping yours down at any. I actually appreciate skepticism. I'm skeptical. I actually am a skeptic. It's just that I understand that some of the areas of inquiry.
That's skeptic.
No, actually, I'm a good skeptic. I understand that there's areas of inquiry that you're never going to satisfy the mind's ability to hold, grasp, see, taste, touch, or smell something. There are experiences that sit outside of the sensate realm. There are experiences that are unexplainable inside the normal workaday mindset. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't pursue this, and I can say, well, I'm not making any money at this. I'm actually not, but I do get something out of it. And that is kind of an intellectual drive. Plus, this is what interests me. I have reasons to be interested in the material that I talk about. So I do believe in it to a certain degree. I'm predisposed to believe it. And I'm honest about that.
Yeah, but hey, listen, and believe you me, and at the same time, it's just one of those things. Like, believe you me, I have plenty of things that I think that are freaky deaky. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of things that I think are freaky deaky, and and I've had, everyone has anomalous experiences. Everyone has, we're here for a reason, and and I think the best thing is this is that we can even come to a point where we can understand that we live in the same world. Right, we're existing in the kind of same kind of space.
Right.
We're part of the same community. And at the same time, we're reaching out and saying, "Hey, yo, about it." And we have a discussion about what is the nature of reality. We start looking at the evidence and piecing it out. I think that when I came on the scene, one of the things that I've always consistently noticed was, unlike the quote unquote real world, it's very, very common in this world to see people talking only with people that they agree with. Here I am, and I've got my internet radio TV platform, and I believe in the contactee experience and psychic Sasquatch and UFOs. And here I am talking to contactee number blue, 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 and here you are. And what do you have to say today? I'm here to tell you that I believe in psychic Sasquatch and the UFOs and you know what I mean? It's everybody talking to people that they agree with, and there's no point counterpoint. There's no, even if it's an artificial paradigm, I'm not talking about recreating the artificial paradigm of right versus left, conservative versus liberal, and these opposite polarities. I'm just talking about someone who would say, that sounds crazy, I don't know about that, you're going to have to explain it to me and what, and that sounds kind of fucked up, whatever. And also saying this sounds right or this sounds wrong, to say that this system that's happening over here, see, I understand why it's existing, but it's kind of fucked up. It's kind of fucked up to charge money for that. It doesn't make sense, right? Or it doesn't make sense that things would work in that way. Please explain to me or talk to me. You know what I mean? And so it's good. People talk. We had a little talk tonight. You know what I mean?
We did.
We did.
But I got a sense we got to wrap. We probably got to wrap it up.
It's the
midnight wrap, man.
I gotta get you to bed before you turn into a pumpkin.
Yeah, you got to. Yeah, got to get up tomorrow and do the work,
look, there you go. There you go. Everybody, listen. Tomorrow morning, everybody's got to get up and suck that day's dick. It's just the way.
All God's children got to work.
Everybody's God damn it, Eve, you mother. Really, seriously,
it is.
And thank you to the man upstairs. Makes perfect sense. One bad apple, don't ruin the whole bunch. Will fuck up your generations for come time eternity. This book makes no sort of fucking sense. This is crazy talk, guys. There you go. We'll wrap it up there. Natural, organic end to a natural, organic conversation. I have a feeling that we'll probably have more than one of these.
Yeah, I think so.
My new friend Randy, and tomorrow morning, the 13 people that give a damn will explode on Facebook. I can't believe Randy sold out and talked to that son of a bitch CW candidate. Doesn't he know he's a black magic left hand path?
Hear that shit he's talking.
He's the guy that fucked up. He's a defensive quarterback for the AI Black Goo. He's a water carrier for William Malcolm and the Ashtar Command. That son of a bitch.
I just soiled my pants in public. All right, brother. This was good.
Absolutely, man. We'll let you go. I love you.
Hey, thanks to you guys too out there.
Oh no, everyone had a blast in the chat. We had good viewers. 69 viewers.
Cool.
Young at heart, right?
Absolutely.
Young at heart. And baby, I ain't talking about the year. There you go. I hope that there you go. We'll leave that.
There we go. Yeah.
There you go. One love. Take care, folks. We'll see you around. Be good.
Good night.
Take care.